Did you know that every word you speak matters? Are your conversations making a difference? With a passion for words and a heart for conversation, Teresa Velardi is a self-professed word nerd, best-selling author, BizCat 360 columnist, and publisher. Children's books as well as fiction and nonfiction books are welcomed at We Be Books Publishing and Book Endeavors, the imprints of her company, Authentic Endeavors Publishing. Whether written or spoken, Teresa strives to encourage and inspire meaningful conversations that make a difference. Here's the host of Conversations That Make a Difference, Teresa Velardi.
Hi, and welcome to Conversations That Make a Difference. I'm Teresa Velardi, your host, and we are excited to have Andi Buerger here with us today. I'm going to just go through what we do every week. I'm going to tell you that Conversations That Make a Difference airs on the first and third Tuesday of the month live at 5 p.m. Eastern. And you can listen every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern on Dream Vision 7 Radio Network. You can watch online on YouTube. You can ask Alexa to play Dream Vision 7 Radio. You can listen in your car, on your phone, wherever it is that you have a device that plays audio. So we're excited to have Andi here. But before I introduce her, I would like us to first do what we do every week, and we're going to say the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And I also want to say that it is by God's grace that we are fabulous, blessed, highly favored, living in our greatness, using our gifts and talents, making a difference in the lives of others with passion and purpose, and all of God's great universe is conspiring in our favor. And we gratefully say, amen. So let me tell you about this woman that I have become friendly with, because we have missions in the world to make a difference in whatever way we can. And she is brave and bold, beautiful, and she has an incredibly good purpose in life. Andi is Andi has a not-for-profit organization called Voices Against Trafficking. And she works to create an expansive tool for which everyday people can, up to the highest government officials, can draw resources for public awareness. Now, if you are not familiar with what trafficking is, we're going to talk about that. But first, let me say that Andi is an international speaker, author, and advocate for victims of human trafficking and exploitation. Andi herself was a victim of child sex trafficking and unspeakable abuses by family members for 17 years. She founded Beulah's Place, which provided temporary shelter services for at-risk, unsheltered teens for 14 years. 300 plus youths were, try and say that 3 times fast, 300 plus youths were successfully rescued and assisted, earning national recognition. So she had a nationally recognized place for kids to go when they were in trouble. Andi later founded Voices Against Trafficking to speak for those who cannot speak for themselves, the voiceless victims of human trafficking and exploitation. VAT, Voices Against Trafficking, advocates for the protection of every human's rights, regardless of race, gender, culture, or socioeconomic status. Voices Against Trafficking, the strength of many voices speaking as one, gives a portion of proceeds from each sale to survivors of child abuse and trafficking, and does Andi's first book, A Fragile Thread of Hope, One Survivor's Quest to Rescue. Andi launched Voices of Courage magazine in 2023. It is distributed internationally and accepted into the U.S. Library of Congress. It honors everyday heroes who selflessly fight to protect human rights. These champions come from all walks of life to change communities and the world for the better. A television series by the same title debuts in 2025. Andi, you have so much going on. I know you're making a world of difference in this arena. Welcome to Conversations That Make a Difference.
Well, thank you, Teresa, and thanks to your audience as well. I'm just honored to be here and looking forward to being able to create that awareness and impassion people to want to be part of the solution.
Yeah. And this is something that I'm pretty passionate about. I've seen what can happen. My niece, when she was very young, almost got abducted. And I'm convinced today with what has happened, what is going on in the world with children, that she could have been a statistic, but instead she's thank you, Jesus. She's perfect. She's got a family, and she's doing well. So for people who don't know what human trafficking is or don't understand it, can you give us a picture of what something like this would look like in just even any town in the country? I'm sure has lost children or women to human trafficking. So give us an idea what it looks like.
Yes, absolutely. Even though there is a great myth that says, "Oh, it doesn't happen in our community," that is not true. We know that every 40 seconds, Teresa, a child 18 years or under is abducted. That means they're taken or they're lured to something that seems safe, maybe a summer job, maybe babysitting, maybe mowing lawns, whatever it is. They are actually taken. So every community is affected. So the basic definition, Andi's baseline definition, is human trafficking is when somebody is forced or coerced to be either labor, engaged in sexual activity, or debt repayment against their will. They could be a child, it could be an adult, but they did not willingly engage. They did not offer themselves out for that type of activity. They are literally coerced into it and usually terrorized, or their family members, or they're threatened, that if you say anything, we're going to tell your mom, your dad, your family, or we're going to kill them. And, I have many examples of that. So that's the basic rule of thumb. Before human trafficking became a term, there was a lot of familial trafficking, inter-family trafficking that did not necessarily involve money, but it involved perversion. So basically, human trafficking is driven by perversion and greed, and we always hear about the greed. National headlines, movies, it's all about the money.
Yeah. Recently, I think it was last year, Sound of Freedom came out and really put eyes on trafficking of young children. How often, you said every how many seconds children are abducted?
Every 40 seconds in the US.
In the US. And the United States is, from what I've read and the research I've done in the past, is that the United States is the #1 country that perpetuates this horrible, horrible practice and crime. These are crimes against humanity. So that's huge. It's ridiculous. And most of the times people don't get out. How do people get out?
That's right. It is by the grace of God. Even in my situation in the early 60s, when there wasn't even a conversation about child abuse, if there was something wanky with Uncle Joe or Grandpa or whatever, people just swept it under the rug, or they didn't talk about it, didn't invite them to gatherings. But people generally, the statistics from a couple years ago, I always use conservative statistics because it's changed dramatically in the last 3 years with an open border. But statistically, only one out of every 100 victims will survive or survive long enough to move forward, and go on with a life. The average lifespan of a victim, once they are engaged in human trafficking activities against their will, as you said, a crime against humanity, a crime against their body and person, their average lifespan is 7 years after the start.
Yeah.
So it's a very hard life. And people wonder why some of the survivors come out as drug addicts or alcoholics or whatever. But what you have to realize is their body has been sold in sex trafficking, for instance, at least 20 to 25 times a day. Now imagine a child or any adult having that many activities in one 24-hour period. And most of the time they are drugged, because after a while, they can't do it. And they wouldn't do it if they had a choice.
Mm-mm.
And many times they die in the process.
Oh my goodness. My heart. My heart. I think of that. I'm going to go back to that movie because that gave a really good picture of how covert these people who drag these young children into trafficking are. I mean, in that particular movie, they had tryouts for I guess it was modeling or movie stuff, and the kids were all like, "Oh, I'm going to be in pictures. I'm going to be in pictures," and the next thing you know, they're taken from their families and they're scattered among the world. And that's the other thing. I just heard just probably 20 minutes before I came on to do the show today that there are, since that border has been open, there are 325,000 children who are missing in this country. No one knows where they are. How often are people, are children and women mostly taken from a place and then transported to another country? And in that case, they probably never get seen again unless they have a story like the one in the movie.
Absolutely. So, and that's the low end of the numbers. That's just what has been reported. And here's the thing: it used to be, let's say there is a child that comes across our border. Let's just take the U.S. and Mexico. That child should be placed in Child Protective Services (CPS). And Health and Human Services has to run those things. There should be a 30-day hold in order to verify, do you really have family here? Are you connected to anybody? And why aren't they, given physical exams and checked out? Now it's less than 10 days for every child. They're moving them fast through foster care, through CPS. And again, without a checks and balance, those kids most likely will be sold if they haven't already. But to lose that many children, why isn't there an outcry about the agencies that are responsible for those children? And here's the thing: I truly believe there are some parents in other countries that think, if only my kid, my child could get to America and make their dreams come true. They're very vulnerable, right? What parent doesn't want, the bright lights, big city, Hollywood, opportunity? Look at all the athletes from different countries that play professional sports. However, the person they send that child or those children with, along the way, are they connected to someone who's going to take those children? Are they being paid to escort? They're coyotes, is what we call them, to take them across the border, and the parents may never see them again. We also have cases, even in the US, I hate to tell people this, but it's true. Some families will sell a child, either because they have bills to pay or they can't handle it or for whatever reason. Okay, so children are sold for a number of reasons, and there are plenty out there. So yes, the US is, I am going to say, complicit in the exponential rise of child sex trafficking, of human trafficking, of what happens to the women and children before they even cross the border. Okay, and so we astonish people when we use, tough words like raping trees and things, but maybe we need to be kind of awakened as a community to the brutality of what happens to these adults and children. The children did not have a choice, and now they're in a country, probably don't speak the language. They have no way to do anything except be sold. Maybe some of the young men will go work somewhere, cash under the table, but where do they live? How do they live? How do they utilize the services that we would normally give if we knew, how to bring them in properly?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Unbelievable. So it's no wonder you created a not-for-profit, actually two not-for-profit organizations dedicated to eradicating human traffic and sexual exploitation. How did you ever get the guts to get started with this after all you have been through? I have to tell you, you're one of my heroes.
Thank you. I appreciate that. But as you know, it's God's grace. So let me just kind of give you the five and dime for your audiences so they understand the background very quickly. In the early 60s, as I said, there weren't any organizations, there weren't any safe houses. They didn't even talk about child abuse. It was the culture. I was actually trafficked by all immediate and some extended family members from the ages of 6 months to 17 years old. And again, the image factor, go to church, have an image, whatever it was, we were very controlled. But the physical abuse, the sexual abuse, the torture that and I had to endure by the age of 5, Teresa, it was so bad. And my birth mother said she could take me out anytime. So I thought, if I'm going to die anyway, I'll beat her to the punch and I'll just go kill myself. And I went to the curb of my house and I waited for a car to be coming by fast enough. It was usually a busy street, but at that day, at that time, there weren't any cars, so I waited. But while I was waiting, and here's how God meets people sometimes, in such desperation and pain, I just wanted to be dead so no one could touch me. Nobody could, beat me to death. Nobody could, control me. And I looked into this huge blue sky and I thought, wow, it's just so big. Where does it go? How far does it go? Who made it? Is there someone out there that made this beautiful sky that's bigger than the people that were hurting me? And in that moment, I heard this voice within my heart say, this is not the plan I have for you. Suicide is not the answer. Now, I'm 5 years old. I never would have known what the word suicide meant. But I heard that voice. I felt that voice within my body, and I trusted it. And I decided, okay. I went up to the garage and I just sat against the garage door, or stood against it. And I said, if you keep me alive, I will do whatever you call me to do. Those are the exact words. So as many people know, there's a difference between being asked to do something and being called to do something.
Yeah.
And so this blind faith with a God I hadn't met began on that curb. Now, life was not easy. I had things that happened. I was locked up for 3 months during the summer. I could only have a bathroom break a day, and things like that. And because somebody told a lie, and so I was locked up. And so I tried to take my life a couple more times. And by the time I was 17, I thought, okay, well, I've come this far, so maybe I should try and stick it out because I've already endured so much pain. But the summer I turned 17 was the summer my birth mother, the last time she tried to kill me by choking me to death. So it was not an easy life by any means, but I also know that God was always there. He's the one, Jesus is the one that pulled me away from the second story window that I tried to jump out of. He's the one that kept me from cutting my wrist with a steak knife, at age 8. So there was a plan and a purpose. And I try and encourage people, no matter what has happened in your life, God has not forgotten you.
No. Oh, man. To be told that this is not what you're called for. He's calling you to something. And then to actually, even through everything that you have gone through, be brave enough to say, okay, it's time. And then you step into the role that was prepared for you, despite everything that you had experienced. It takes guts, girl. It takes guts.
Thank you. Well, I'm not going to say no to that. I don't think I clearly knew exactly how it was all going to happen, because it seemed simple. Just go, talk to the teens, rescue them, whatever. But I had this major life event where I had the 4th of 10 traumatic brain injuries, and I was not able to work in 2008. Lost a very high-paying corporate training job, and I thought, what am I going to do? I'm in my, my 40s, and I don't know if this is all my life will be. I lost a year of memory. But during that time is when God inspired Beulah's Place, and basically said, you don't have to be a rocket science. All you have to do is love them. And I thought, okay, so Ed and I talked about it. We started doing that. We created a safe house system where anyone that we vetted, single, married, grandparents, would take one of our kids in for 3 to 5 months. And we would, they had to finish high school, GED or diploma. They had to get a job and maintain it. Sometimes they could earn their way to a car that would be donated. But all in all of those kids, what they needed was someone to intercede, to give them guidelines, not judgment. Our basic plan, because we didn't really have one, was to love unconditionally and then figure out their needs, food, housing, jobs, medical, dental, whatever it took, and then create a plan for them, Teresa, where they could go and reintegrate into community again successfully as young
Right.
adults.
Yeah. And that takes, yeah. Well, how awesome to be able to set somebody up in a family that's going to love them and not hurt them, and be there to advocate for them and make sure that they get what they need. It's a huge undertaking, I'm sure. And
Mhm.
how many kids did you say you put through the program? More than 300, yes?
Right, in the Central Oregon area, and some of those kids came from other places as well, and they ended up in our area. And then, of course, we also did help some case-by-case kids outside of Oregon. But yeah, and out of those 312 have completed university or college.
Nice.
Yeah, homeless to college, and they're changing their world their way. And unfortunately, COVID put a kink into what we were doing in terms of we had just gotten a building, we were halfway through renovating it, and in Oregon, the leadership, I use that word loosely, decided that kids were the problem in COVID, and we weren't able to keep the building. But God used that too. So that's when Voices Against Trafficking was birthed out of the Beulah's Place success.
Wow. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about that when we get back, but we're gonna have to take a break right now. When we get back, I would like to talk to you not only about what you just said, how God used that, even in the time of COVID, where you could not complete the mission, so to speak. It's like the thing: the shortest distance between 2 points is from A to B, but God's plan usually takes us on a road all the way around before we get to
Yep.
the point. So, and along the way, there are good things, and I can't wait to hear some of them.
Yes.
So we'll be right back with Andi Buerger, and this is Conversations That Make a Difference.
Are you one of the many people who said, "Someday I'll write a book," but don't know how to get started? Many wannabe authors have begun with the same question and are now published by Authentic Endeavors Publishing, a multi-imprint hybrid publishing company. Whether you're writing an autobiography, a memoir, a kingdom book, a children's book, a business book, or an anthology, we have a place for you. Visit www.AuthenticEndeavorsPublishing.com for more information or to set up a 20-minute consultation. Your title of published author is within reach.
Born Able exists to highlight and normalize the humanity, worth, and abilities of infants and children born with complex medical conditions. We write, illustrate, and publish books for these children and have featured over 1,000 children throughout the world. Our videos and posts have been viewed over 100 million times on social media as we strive to showcase these amazingly abled kids and fight relentlessly for equal medical care, regardless of diagnosis. All proceeds from Born Able books go directly to the Born Able Foundation. To nominate a special kid to be featured in a Born Able book, go to www.bornable.org to learn more.
Did you know that every word you speak matters? What you say and how you say it can make or break a relationship or shift the outcome of any situation. Are your conversations making a difference? Faith in God, gratitude, authenticity, and giving are Teresa Velardi's heart. It's in this spirit that she's focused on making a difference in the lives she's blessed to touch. Conversations That Make a Difference is now on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern Time, with live call-in shows every first and third Tuesday at 5 p.m. Eastern.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back with Andi Buerger. We are talking about human trafficking and Voices Against Trafficking, and how Andi has made a difference in the lives of people who have experienced such a horrendous life after they have been trafficked. So, Andi, what are the biggest obstacles on challenges that hinder the work that you're doing, the anti-trafficking efforts. There are, when you talk to people about this, some of them say, "Oh, it's not happening as bad as you think it is," and there's huge denial around this. What are some of the obstacles and the challenges that you go through, and keeping in mind that you have helped so many kids get out and created a safe place for them to be able to live a much more peaceful life? Talk to me. Tell me what I need to know, what our listeners need to know. And while you're doing that, maybe you want to say one thing that I would like to know, and I'm sure my listeners would like to know as well, are there certain things that you can see about people who are actually being have been abducted and are under the control of somebody else? And is there something that we can do as laymen, if you will, to help those people, the children or the women who are in this situation?
All right, so we're going to call that a two-parter. I'm going to start
Absolutely.
with,
Absolutely.
yeah. One, as we talked before, breaking the myth that, oh, it doesn't happen here. I know my neighbors. Okay, well, if you know your neighbors, and let's say your preteen is trying to socialize and there's a sleepover or a pizza party or something, do you know if that person has additional children? Is there a son, that stays in the house while the daughter is having the sleepover? What about the coach that, doesn't want the parents to come to the pizza party? And that's a true story. Didn't want the parents there, just wanted all the girls there, right? Okay, so there are things that happen that look innocent. Crowds of any kind. I don't care if you're on the soccer field or if it's, Super Bowl Sunday. Crowds are very, very dangerous for kids. And just not so long ago, the story about the father, the daughter went up to use the bathroom in a stadium, at a big professional sports game, and disappeared. Took him 11 days, to find her, which was a miracle, but she was already in another state. She had already been violated. That father will never forget that day. And it doesn't mean we have to police our kids, but we do have to teach them how to be aware. And we need to have some things that I'll offer to help people, like, the family code and things like that, to know when their kids are in trouble. But back to obstacles. Clearly, funding, because if people don't believe it happens, they're not going to support it either in time or with valuable resources. Okay, and there are good organizations out there, but again, it's all about vetting and doing our due diligence to find out who's doing the work. What we find a lot of times, we have this amazing prevention program from the Paratus Group and Brian Searcy, and we have tried to get that into schools and try to get families interested in just watching a 4-minute video 5 days a week for 90 days. That's it. And your family will definitely be situationally aware. You'll know how to help have conversations with your children. I have a mom who, bless her heart, she works 2 jobs. Dad works. They have a couple of kids, but they spent the $79 one time to do this program, and they make it fun. They have taco night on Monday, and they watch the video, or they talk about what the video says. And then one of the kids gets to choose dinner for the next night, but they were willing to put time and energy. And because of that, they actually helped a child that was being abducted. They noticed something strange in the restaurant, like the body language of someone who's abused or controlled. They'll usually be quiet, maybe not have eye contact. They won't speak unless the handler, as we call them, tells them to speak. Even if it's just ordering pancakes, all of that is done for them. But this couple who had gone through the training felt something was off. And so as the man and this young girl exited the restaurant, they got up and they took a picture of the license plate of the car. And then they called the police, and they told them their suspicions and why they thought it was suspicious. The car ended up being stolen, but at least there was a clue for the police to go after. So again, we don't know whose child that was. But what I say, again, we're not trying to police them. We're trying to protect them. But if we don't have a conversation as adults with our kids, the kids that we're involved with, grandkids, foster kids, any kids, up to the age of 24, because right now, Teresa, college campuses are the most dangerous for women 18 to 24 years old. It used to be, oh, well, just you might get raped if you went out at night. No, It's way worse than that now. There are recruiters on campuses looking for men and women, young men and young women, to be trafficked. And it could be a party. It could be so many different things that look normal, or that a young person says, I want to do that, and I'm here at college and it's okay, right? Because my friends are. It's not always okay. So those obstacles, and then of course, our leadership, whether it's the mayor or the school board, head of the school board, or we go all the way up to the White House. What are they doing to help keep America's children safe? And if they're not doing something, why? Pull your support. Don't vote for that person, because here's the crux. Human trafficking is not about right versus left. It's about right versus wrong. And it should always be wrong, unless you're participating in it or profiting from it. But you're not going to see that. But it is wrong no matter where you stand, economically, gender-wise, political-wise. And here's the other thing that people think: it just started in America, right?
No.
That's not true. Human trafficking has been going on since before the Greco-Roman eras. There has always been a trade of human life for sex, for profit, for labor, for debt repayment. So it didn't just occur. We're just now getting a lot more exposure to it in the last 40, 50 years. So
This is a form of slavery.
Yeah, absolutely. And think about the national headlines. Think about the university scandals. Think about Epstein and Maxwell. Here's Ghislaine Maxwell, well-dressed, nice shoes, nice nails, nice hair. What young woman wouldn't want to be like what they saw, right? And so she invites somebody, over, and there you have it. There are a lot of female predators, and people refuse. That's the other myth. Oh, well, they wouldn't do that, Yeah, they do.
Yeah, and it's sad. It's really sad. Now, I don't know if this is something that you teach the kids, but I know that there is a signal, a hand signal that people can use when they are being abused or are with somebody that they don't know, that they need help. And I've always, like, for a woman in distress, I think this signal is 4 fingers up, 1 finger in here, and then you close your hand. Do you know about this signal? Is this something that you teach them?
I do know about it. I don't specifically teach it, because guess who else knows what those signals mean?
Yeah.
So when you identify yourself as a woman in distress, that was a great idea. And it could still work if the predators and people that want an easy hit, a kidnap, sexual assault, anything, didn't also know that. They are also using young teenagers to do those signs, to get into somebody's car, into somebody's house, to do whatever it is they're going to do. And so we have to be careful. So here's an alternative. Okay. If you have, whether your family unit is a single person, a married, a family, whatever, roommate situation, we always encourage people to create a code that, say, let's take a family of 4. You got a mom, a dad, 2 kids. That family should have a code word, something generic, because you don't want to say, well, dial 911 or police. Maybe you say groceries is your word for your family. And when your child texts you that word, uh-oh, I got to go get them. I got to help. They're in trouble somehow. And for parents that have trackers on phones, do that immediately. Okay. For adult children, say college age or adult teens, have the family code. And also, if they have 2 or 3 kids that they normally hang with that are regulars in their life, they could also have their own code, so that if they're with a friend, because when a teen or a young person's in trouble, they'll probably call a friend first before they would call a parent figure. They could also have a code for them. Maybe it's, beer, or maybe it's, I don't know, dinner, something like that, pizza, whatever that word is, but do not share it with anyone. We had a little trouble teaching some of our kids that. Oh, I told, so-and-so what my word was. And so we would talk about the responsible way to use that. If you are a parent with young kids and you have a daycare worker, or you have someone come to the house, or anything like that that you trust, and please vet them out, then they could also have access to that word. It's just a quiet way, because if someone gets snatched, it takes as little as 3 seconds for a predator to snatch a 10-year-old that weighs 70 pounds.
Wow.
Okay. That's how fast. And a lot of times there's not going to be a way to call, but kids are very fast with texting. And so they could text that word or text some help word that you all choose. So that's one way to do it. Another way to prepare, like that couple in the restaurant, they were already prepared. But for those who aren't, go to voicesagainsttrafficking.com. We have helplines and hotlines. Put them in your phone today. This way, if you see something, you can say something safely. You know, your neighbor's not going to know. The town's not going to find out. It's a suicide hotline, human trafficking suspicion or victim hotline, child abuse hotline, all kinds of helplines and hotlines. And if you have children who can understand the responsibility for those numbers, make sure they have those in their phone too. So Voices Against Trafficking has that on there.
Nice. And some of these hotline numbers are national hotline numbers. It doesn't.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And Department of Homeland Security, we have that line there too. They will take reports of suspected trafficking, abductions, things like that.
Okay, good. Well, you're giving us a lot of information already. So I hope that people who are listening are feeling a little bit safer knowing some of the things that Andi is sharing with us. This is a national, this is an international, this is a worldwide problem that people would like to deny, but it's alive and well and living in every city in this country and every city in the world probably. So speaking of all over the place, how much does the media, let's say, how much are they, what kind of role do they play in this whole thing? A lot of times you won't hear stuff on how to help on the media. To me, that's kind of like being complicit or in denial that there is actually a problem. So what part does the media play in this whole thing?
Well, they should play a major part. And thanks to you and other people that have shows and that are in media in general, I appreciate that so much for being part of the solution. But here's the deal. It's not really news to them because it doesn't gain them anything to talk about that. A lot of big box stores used to have walls with missing children's pictures on it. Why aren't we talking about, take 30 seconds out of every show, every newscast to highlight, hey, this person's missing, or as a reminder, go put these numbers in your phone because, trafficking is an issue, whether it's here or somewhere else. Be prepared. Why aren't we encouraging people to be involved in the solution to prevent it, which is the best way to not have it? Okay. If we prevent one victim, it's worth whatever you have to do that. So the media, in my opinion, is very lax because they are not using not only my services, which are there for the taking, all our speakers that are involved in Voices Against Trafficking, that are fighting internet, safety and all those things. We're all here available, and yet getting to mainstream media is very difficult because it's either not sexy or saleable enough. It's not a big headline for them. And honestly, you don't know who's covering up for who, right? Or who's getting paid by who.
Yeah. You have no idea who's getting their palm greased, so to speak, to keep their mouth shut or to say something that's a code for somebody else that doesn't,
Absolutely.
This tunnel runs really deep, really wide, really long, and it's all over the place. So we have to go to break again. I hate to break this up, but we have to take a break, and we'll be right back with Andi Buerger. And we're talking about Voices Against Trafficking and how you can play a part in the fact that you are becoming aware of some of the things that are out there that you may not have looked at before. We'll be right back.
Do you have an uplifting personal story to share? The Daily Gift Book series began with a daily gift of gratitude and a daily gift of hope, both available on Amazon. We're looking for people like you to share a story in our continuing series. Kindness, peace, inspiration, and generosity are just a few of the upcoming topics in the Daily Gift Book series. Your stories matter, and they make a difference. Visit www.dailygiftbookseries.com to find out more on how to submit your story for one of the upcoming titles.
With the hustle and bustle of today's world, how often do you practice gratitude? How can you make it a habit? Gratitude is more than putting a smile on your face and being thankful for the roof over your head. It's expanding your perception and finding gratitude for every opportunity and every challenge. Gratitude is a feeling of connection to things higher than yourself, to God, and to others. We focus on light, positivity, and connections. When we join our grateful hearts together, the power of community attracts more people and even more to be grateful for while making a difference. A grateful heart is infectious. Share it. Join our Grateful Hearts community on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/The Grateful Hearts Community and watch your blessings blossom.
This is Dream Vision 7 Radio Network, uniting mankind with universal love. Our shows are created from the heart, bringing each listener to a place of divine enlightenment. Breathe, relax, and enjoy. Let life flow.
And we're back. We're having this incredibly good conversation with Andi Buerger, who is with Voices Against Trafficking. She has not-for-profit organizations, has been, for those of you who are just joining us, has been trafficked herself. And we are talking about what's going on out there. And we're talking about some solutions for families to be able to, and practices for families to be able to prepare their kids. You know, Andi, the other day, I read something about 11 kids in a container, in a cargo container, were rescued. And the children, several of them, they were under 11. They were under 11, and several of them said they had been in a store with their mom, and they just got taken. They just got taken. Talk to me about how parents can be more mindful. Well, obviously, parents, be more mindful of where your children are. Okay, talk to me about how people can actually do something about this. Or prevent.
Absolutely. It gives me chills to even think about that anytime I see a container when I'm traveling around the, roads. It's just, okay. So to your point, yes, and especially with holidays coming up where it gets even busier for a lot of families, school has started, there's a lot going on. And so we're not blaming parents. What we're asking them to do is, like you said, please be more aware of where your children are. So I was in a big box store, groceries, sundry, the whole thing, huge. And I saw 3 little kids in the aisle, the toy aisle, no parents, no adults that seemed to be connected to them. But I will tell you what I have experienced and seen. My guess is the parent probably said, sure, go ahead and look at all the toys, so you can tell Santa or, whatever, go entertain yourself basically while I go do grocery shopping. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But most of those big box stores, where are the toy aisles and things next to? Bathrooms, exterior exit doors, for employees, all kinds of things where somebody could easily snatch them and exit before a parent is even aware of what has happened. They'll think the child's lost in the store. They'll have somebody go over the PA, but by that time, that's at least an hour. Okay, that's at least an hour. So please be with your child or have an adult that is responsible. Watch them. Because it is so easy, and you do not want that tragedy in your family. You do not want your child to go through what I did or what so many others have gone through. And again, there are a lot of big box do-it-yourself stores, and they have these little sessions, these little classes, which is great. But have a parent or an older guardian there watching the person, giving the lessons, watching around. I'll give another example. Big box store in our area, I kept noticing every time I would drive through, I wasn't shopping there, but there was another store I was shopping at. And I noticed that there were 3 black SUVs in the back of the parking lot consistently for about 2 or 3 weeks. Okay, well, guess what? I talked to some of our colleagues, and we all agreed that they were waiting so that the first SUV could go up and snatch somebody. The second one would be a backup. And if they got lucky, the third one would pick up someone else, okay, as they're coming out of the store with their package or their kid or whatever. And it could be an adult or a child, but they are waiting to pounce, okay? And so we have to be more aware of the parking lots, who's in the stands at our kids, ball games. What about the dance class? Have you vetted out the teachers? Are you looking at the other parents? Are you looking at, how they respond to certain movements by the kids dancing? It's, really cute to have your daughter in a tutu, but you have to be there. You can't just rely on that teacher to be basically the babysitter.
Right.
Not in these times. It used to be different, but it's not anymore. And it just really, my heart is for people to protect our children, but we have to be more diligent.
And the other thing as far as paying attention, these things right here are huge distractions.
Absolutely.
How many times you're in the store and you see people and all they're doing is looking down, looking down, looking down. Pay attention to what's going on around you, people. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Even if they're not your children, pay attention to what's going on around you. If you see a child in distress, I would be the one that goes and says, "Are you okay?"
Right.
I would be
absolutely.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There was a little glitch. But to your point, school bus areas, there are a lot of times I see kids all by themselves, getting on the bus. And I understand parents work, or, maybe grandma isn't well and she can't watch the kids or whatever it is. But I don't have to have little children to be an adult that could volunteer and watch the bus stop, one day a week. Let's say get 7 people or 5 people to watch that area, just from, that point of view. Volunteer, vacation Bible school. Who's in the parking lot watching who comes in and out? Who's watching for the people watching the children? Let's see, what else can we think of? The stores we've already talked about. Just all those different things. And if your child has to use the restroom, even if they are 10 years old and they're old enough, stand outside that door, wait for your son, wait for your daughter, make sure they come out, within a reasonable time. I saw a mom do this the other day, and I said, good for you for standing outside waiting for your son. Her 2 daughters were in the bathroom where I was, so I was watching them without her knowing, and I was making sure they were safe. But she was waiting to make sure her boy came out of that bathroom, and we don't do that enough.
No, we don't do that enough. Movies, we talked about there are some movies, Sound of Freedom. And when Sound of Freedom came out, there were t-shirts that were being sold afterwards. God's children are not for sale. God's children are not for sale. And that's a line from the movie. And Jim Caviezel does a great job in this movie. I think that, there's nothing that is, they don't do anything graphic in the movie, but they definitely paint a picture of how a certain scenario can play out for children when there are people who are looking specifically to take them into this arena. So Sound of Freedom. What's the other one that you mentioned to me earlier?
The Taken series with Liam Neeson. They kind of started it in a different way. It was definitely, theatrical, but there is a lot of truth in that movie. One parent didn't want the daughter to go to Europe. The other parent did. It was, kind of a battle between the 2 divorced parents. The girls go and things happen, but the first one in particular, and then it goes into the second and third movie. But for a starter movie, if someone hasn't seen that one, start with that. And then, if I would definitely recommend Sound of Freedom. There are a lot of movies, Ring of Silence. There's so many. Do some research. If you're a movie person, do some research, watch the movies. YouTube, if you want information. But again, look at credible sources. Why isn't this in the schools where they're teaching all kinds of things? Why don't we have anti-trafficking or prevention? There's a free program called SEMPI, SEMPI, out of Australia. 22 countries are using it, and they're reducing the homelessness, the hunger, and the incidence of trafficking of children. And I've tried, to get that into our area here, and I'm going to keep plugging away because the material is free. And it's developed by a survivor, and it helps 5-year-olds vet their peers all the way up through college. It can be used all the way up through college. Yeah. So why aren't we saying, give us more of that? We want that for our school. We want our kids to understand.
What's the name of the program again? Say it again.
SEMPI, S like Sam, E-M-P like Peter, I, SEMPI. Perfect. So each day in the classroom, their teachers let's check our senpai today. And there are 4 questions. It's a social communication program. And it's something like, did you eat yesterday? Okay, did you sleep last night? If you didn't, why? Did someone come in, or were you hungry? Things like that. So it asks 4 simple questions, and at the end, the child will ask the other child, do we need an adult to help us? Can you
Nice.
imagine if we vetted from 5 years old up what we could do? It would be humongous.
It would be humongous. There's just so much here. So for those of you who are listening, there's replays on this. Replay it, share it with other people. Andi is a wealth of information, and I'm floored. The other thing that I wanted to say is we were talking about, you just said college. Okay, so a lot of college kids, even high school kids, they go to other countries on, student exchange students. One comes to States and one comes to go to the other country. They don't know anybody. They're being entrusted to a family who knows if they've been really vetted or whatever. And they're in a place where they may not even know the language, and they're going there for a period of time. Or let's say a group of kids just graduated high school and they're going to go backpack through Europe or something. What can you tell the family members, parents, and what tips can you give to these kids who are so ambitious to go on these adventures, if you will, to keep themselves safe?
Well, we've mentioned a few things, but yes, the kids themselves need to have that code. There should be some responsible adult on the other end, or somewhere where they can identify a safe spot. If you're in trouble, where would you go if you could get there? Okay, so the parents need to be involved in that. Even if you have an 18-year-old, okay, sure, we want you to have this adventure, but here's what needs to happen before you go. And have the conversations. And if you don't know how to have it, ask one of us. We'll help you. We're not perfect, but we can tell you what to look for. I get some physical therapy, and one of the therapists is first time out of Oregon, young girl, beautiful, cute, blonde, adorable, hasn't been out of her hometown for 24 years, and she's going to New York. And so I talked to her about things to look for and what she and her girlfriend need to understand. But they actually have one of the parents in New York who's going to be kind of their guide or their safe spot, even though they're going to be independently doing activities. So we just need to make the map of safety for our kids because they don't know. They don't know what kind of target they are for predators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of us are raised in how, especially if we are in a very safe household. Mm-hmm. We're raised with blinders on, that we don't imagine that this could possibly happen to anyone we know or anyone, one of our children or whatever. We just don't imagine that we can. But I know that you have a lot of resources on the website. Can you tell people a little bit more about the website and what they can get there?
Okay, on voicesagainsttrafficking.com, voicesagainsttrafficking.com, besides the helpline hotlines, we have our books. As Teresa mentioned, there are 2 books, and proceeds go to victims of child abuse and exploitation and trafficking. We also have a CD coming out, or an album, so to speak, a digital album. It's called Broken Treasures, the Inspiration Album. We're going to have positive, songs, message songs. That's going to be a fundraiser for us, and hopefully out right before Thanksgiving. That's a way to support us. Very simple, just like buying a book. We also have the magazine Voices of Courage available on the website and on Amazon. So again, lots of resources. If you're a long-term reader, read a book. If you like magazine style, that's more editorial, get the magazine. If you love to listen to music, it's coming. And then we're going to have a TV show next year. And then usually we try to have 1 or 2 free live international forums through Facebook and YouTube. Again, it all depends on funding. Right now, we're a little bit low, and we have survivors that we're supporting, one in Africa. We have actually almost 30 orphaned kids from war and human trafficking in Pakistan. So it's growing, and we're trying to, give them school supplies and things. And then also in the U.S. and various states, as well as my area. So all of they need your help. They need your help. We're a 501c3, so that's one small way that you could help us that would create big results.
Right. And if somebody wanted to donate to the organization, how can they do that?
Absolutely. Go to voicesagainsttrafficking.com, click on the donate button, and you'll get your tax receipt. It's through PayPal. You can be recurring or you can be a one-time, and every single dollar gets used. None of us are paid. We are all volunteers. We've been volunteers for 20 plus years.
Andi, you have brought so much information. I don't know how to thank you. For the families that are listening to this, for the mothers, for the fathers, for the children, the daughters, the sons of people who love and honor who you are, please do everything you can in order to be able to make yourself aware of signs and signals that could potentially bring you into harm's way. And for the families that are teaching their kids how to stay safe, kudos to you. Be sure to go to voicesagainsttrafficking.com and do what you can in order to be able to educate your children and yourselves on how to be aware of what is one of the biggest crimes against humanity, if not the biggest crime against humanity, that is happening every single day, multiple times a day around the world. Andi, thank you.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
And thank you all for listening to this incredibly important show of conversations that make a difference. We'll see you next time.
Tune in next time for Conversations That Make a Difference with host Teresa Velardi every Tuesday at 5 a.m. and 5 p.m. Eastern, with live call-in shows every first and third Tuesday on syndicated Dream Vision 7 radio network. Thank you for listening, and thank you to our station owner, Deborah Beauvais, working behind the scenes. Be sure to go to conversationsthatmakeadifference.com for your free gift. Make sure your conversations make a difference.